Welcome to a reimagining of The Grinch That Stole Christmas. Happy holidays, everyone.
The Grinch lived alone on Mount Crumpit, just north of Whoville, with no company but his dog and his grievances. His cave was cold by choice. He had made it cold, arranged it cold, defended its coldness against any intrusion of warmth. The fire was small, the walls were bare. The whole space was designed to confirm what he already knew. He needed nothing and no one. Every December, the Who's down in Whoville reminded him of everything he hated. They decorated, they sang. They gathered in the town square, holding hands and lifting their voices in harmonies that drifted up the mountain like an accusation. What was wrong with them? Didn't they know that love could be taken away? Didn't they understand that connection was just a setup for loss? All that singing, all that closeness, it was delusion, it was weakness, it was asking to be hurt. He knew better. He had learned better somewhere in his past. Through some wound, the story doesn't specify, but that left him certain. Caring was for fools. His heart was 2 sizes too small. This was a medical fact he accepted with something like pride. A small heart couldn't break. A small heart didn't need anyone. A small heart fit neatly in a cave on a mountain, overlooking a town full of fools. This year he decided he would stop them. Not just endure the singing from a distance, not just grit his teeth until January, he would end it. He would take their Christmas. He would steal everything, the trees and the tinsel, the presents and the pudding, the roast beast and the ornaments. Every physical object that they associated with their ridiculous holiday, he would load it on a sleigh and dump it off a cliff. And then they would finally understand what he had always known. The things you love will be taken from you. Let them learn. Let them weep. Let them see the world as it really was, cold and bare and ungiving. He spent Christmas Eve executing the plan. House by house, he emptied Whoville of every Christmas thing. The Who's slept through it, trusting, oblivious. He took the last can of Who hash and grinned his Grinch grin. By dawn, his sleigh was loaded. He hauled it up the mountain to the precipice. The sun was about to rise over Whoville, a Whoville that was, for the first time, completely Christmasless. Now they would know. The sun rose. The Grinch listened. He expected wailing. He expected the sound of hearts breaking as the Who's discovered their empty trees and their missing presents. Instead, they sang. They came out of their houses with nothing, no presents to open, no feast to eat, and they gathered in the town square holding hands. Their voices rose in the same harmonies that had always drifted up the mountain. They were singing louder. The Grinch stood there, gripping the sleigh, trying to understand. He had taken everything. He had removed every object that Christmas depended on. But it hadn't worked. Christmas came anyway. It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. He puzzled and puzzled till his puzzler was sore. And then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. What if Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store? What if Christmas perhaps means a little bit more? Something happened in his chest. The heart that was 2 sizes too small had never been tested. He had kept it protected, on the mountain, in the cave, behind walls of cold and contempt. He had assumed it was safely small because he had never let it face anything that might change it. But standing on that cliff, listening to the Who's sing with nothing, he saw something his small heart couldn't process. They didn't need the objects because they had each other. The decorations were just joy made tangible. Take them away, and the underlying reality remained. People, bound to each other by something that couldn't be removed because it wasn't in a box. He had spent his life protecting himself from this truth, building his cave, maintaining his distance, telling himself that their warmth was delusion and his coldness was wisdom. But looking down at Whoville, at the Whos holding hands in the dawn light, he couldn't maintain the lie. They had something real, but it didn't shatter outward into shards. It broke open, like a seed, like an egg, like anything that must crack before it can grow. The story says his heart grew 3 sizes that day. This sounds like a medical emergency and also like a miracle. It was both. Expanding that suddenly hurt. Growth always does. The Grinch stood on the cliff, his chest seizing, his eyes wet with something he hadn't felt in decades. The walls he had built were collapsing. The coldness he had cultivated was melting. For a terrible moment he felt everything. The loneliness of the mountain, the self-imposed exile, the years of protecting nothing from no one, the waste of it, he cried. And then, in the rubble of his broken defenses, something new became possible. He found himself, almost without deciding to, turning the sleigh around, riding back down the mountain, returning everything he had taken, and more than that, accepting when the Whos invited him in. He carved the roast beast. He sat at their table. He joined the singing, his voice rusty and uncertain but present. He was not good at this. His social skills had atrophied during years of solitude. He said the wrong things and laughed at the wrong moments and felt constantly on the verge of retreating back to his cave. But he stayed. He stayed in the discomfort of connection because the alternative, the mountain, the cold, the clever, lonely misery, had been revealed as worse than any awkwardness. The Grinch became part of Whoville, not without difficulty. But gradually, the town absorbed him. He never became entirely comfortable. Some part of him would always be the creature on the mountain, suspicious of warmth, waiting for the catch. Growth doesn't erase the wound, it grows around it, includes it, transforms what it means. But his heart stayed large. Not because growth was permanent and automatic, but because he kept choosing to let it be stretched. Every time he joined the singing, every time he accepted an invitation, every time he resisted the old logic that said, isolation is safety. The Whos never stopped singing. Their Christmas continued year after year, coming without packages if necessary, coming from something other than a store. And the Grinch, who once stood on a cliff trying to destroy what he didn't understand, learned to stand in the square and lift his voice with the rest of them. Not because the world had changed, because he had.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more. Share to help the channel grow.